Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for NAA's Diversity and Inclusion Awareness Week, entitled, quote, "So You Want to Be an Ally," unquote. My name is James Campbell, and I'm the Senior Manager of Industry Relations with NAA. I want to welcome all our members in attendance and thank you for joining us for this important topic. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping points. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website and YouTube channel next week. You may then share this webinar with those colleagues and friends who are unable to attend at present. Next, we have allotted time at the end of today's presentation for live questions and answers. You may type your questions into the Q&A or chat boxes on your screen at any time, and then we will share them with our presenter. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Marci French. Marci French is the Vice President of Operations with HRG Management Services and a member of the NAAEI Senior Faculty. With over 25 years of multifamily experience, she builds, leads, and coaches high-performing teams. With a unique combination of skills, French possesses extensive portfolio experience, including urban and suburban living, LIHTC, new development and lease-up, renovations and repositioning, as well as student housing. Her drive has garnered her several industry awards across the nation. French has earned her Certified Apartment Manager, CAM, and Certified Apartment Portfolio Supervisor, CAPS designations from NAA. She also enjoys giving back to the local associations, instructing industry designations, leadership, and diversity and inclusion courses. French graduated from the NAA Leadership Lyceum in 2015. She currently serves as a member of the NAA-EI Curriculum Development Committee and vice chairs the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Marci?
Thanks, James, and thank you everybody for joining me today. I'm super excited and honored to be here with all of you. A couple of housekeeping items that I like to go over anytime I do a session on diversity and inclusion, and especially today, because we all work together in this industry. This is not fair housing. This is not EEOC. And I want to make sure that no matter what I say today, you comply with both of those two things, as well as follow all the policies and procedures in your company. And for those of you from my company today, we know how important those policies and procedures are. At the end, like James mentioned, he's going to facilitate the questions. So as it goes, if you have questions, feel free to pop them in as you think about them. James is collecting them and he is going to share them at the very end. Questions and comments are absolutely encouraged. I do better for you if you engage. So let's try to keep this an open conversation. Also, before I get started, I always like to do a land acknowledgement. I'm from Pembroke Pines, Florida. That's where I live. And that is a land that was originally inhabited by the Seminole and Tequesta nations. For me, part of allyship is acknowledging that I live on that land, and it previously belonged to another group of people, and they are underrepresented and marginalized as a result. All right. So yesterday, Chikora and Brenda did an amazing job talking about storytelling. And I laughed when I was getting ready for my session today, because that is part of everything I do in D&I is storytelling. It's an important piece of what we do, and it's how we relate to one another. So a little bit about me, the story of me. This here, you will see why I'm so passionate about all things diversity and inclusion. This is the story of me. I come from a family that is represented by those that are from Germany and Wales. We're Puerto Rican and Japanese, and we're also descendants, African descendants of slaves coming through Nigeria and Cameroon. At the forefront of everything I do is allyship, and you will see the most important ally in my life saw me on the first day I was born and said, I'm going to give that girl every opportunity that I can give her. And I call that Ally Dad. And you'll see him in the middle picture there. All right. So today we're going to talk about the road to allyship. That's what you're here for, right? So how can I be an ally? Well, we're going to talk about why you should be an ally in the workplace. We're going to talk about what support or allyship actually looks like. We're also going to see how can we show up and take action. All right, first, let's talk about the definition. What is allyship? It is the state or condition of being an ally. Supportive association with another person or group, specifically such association with members of a marginalized or mistreated group to which one does not belong. I pulled that from Merriam-Webster. As I was preparing for the webinar this week, yesterday was Indigenous People Day, and that is an area where I really desire to be a better ally. Less than 2% of this country's population is Indigenous, and it makes me sad to think about all that we've enjoyed and benefited from at the expense of another people. So I'm dedicated to using the things we talk about today to be a better ally in that area. All right, do the best that you can until you know better. When you know better, do better. If you've ever been in a session or a training with me, you know this is my favorite quote. I always work it in. It's my very, very favorite thing, because when we know more, when we educate ourselves, we can do better. And then we should be expected to do better. So being an ally for me is about doing the right thing. But if just doing the right thing isn't enough, let's talk about how it affects our industry. How does it impact the financial aspect? And for us in the multifamily world, that's all things NOI. So we can kind of talk about how that affects our industry. So why be an ally? Financial piece. So again, it's not just about doing the right thing. It's the bottom line. It does affect bottom line. When you're an ally to those that are underrepresented in your organization and you sponsor space for them, for their voice, it ushers in creativity in the problem-solving aspect. It generally creates different points of views, and it fosters that in all areas of the business, really. When your coworker has grown up different than you, and they've overcome adversity in a different way than you have, they bring in a different set of problem-solving skills. They come in with a different lens, and they see things completely different than you. It creates also an environment of collaboration. Supporting those from diverse backgrounds and creating a collaborative environment is always a recipe for more success. You can already be a successful organization, a successful community, and think, we're doing things great. We're making our budget. We're hitting all our expenses. We're making all our income. But then you interject some diversity in there. Oh my gosh, it exponentially grows. It can only go up from there. You get new, fresh ideas and unique ideas when you have collaboration, engagement, and retention. Right now, that's at the forefront of everybody's minds. I've been traveling around for the last 5 or 6 days, and literally every single place I've gone, there's been signs up, hiring now, all of the things they offer in the workplace. This last year, as many of us have seen in different articles, has been known as the Great Resignation. A lot of people are leaving their companies because they don't feel like their voices are heard. They don't feel like they're wanted there, and they want to be happy. They want to feel like they are part of something greater than them. A company's culture encourages engagement, or should encourage engagement. And from that, you get retention. If where you are now speaks to who you are, if you feel like you can get your voice heard, you can participate in a meaningful way, you want to be part of that organization. Lastly is reputation. Again, we've been talking about filling roles with good talent. What is the reputation of your organization or where you work? I was speaking to somebody the other day about the fact that they were giving a sales pitch. And they were speaking to me about how they felt like they were the best of all the competition, that no one could hold a candle to what their organization could give. And one of the things in their sales pitch was, hey, we have a diversity and inclusion program. We have a committee in our organization, and we are fostering all things diversity and inclusion. We're speaking about it. We're engaging people. We're finding diversity in our leadership. and encouraging it in our leadership. They said that they were really disappointed to find out they didn't get the client didn't choose them. And the client called them and said, you know what? You really were the best. We thought you guys were absolutely amazing. But all of that you were speaking about, diversity and inclusion, we didn't see it. All of the leadership that presented to us was the same. We didn't see any diversity. So you're talking about it. We want to see it. So many of us are having those same conversations in the multifamily industry with vendors. We're looking for companies that speak about D&I and also show us that in their leadership. They're looking for organizations that are led by diverse or underrepresented group. This is really important to people when they decide. All right, so now why? We talked about why. Let's talk about what the process looks like. And by the way, it is a process. Allyship is a process. Something bad doesn't happen out in society and we just wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to change the world. Well, we do. We do wake up and say, we're going to change the world. And I get calls from friends and family all the time and they say, Marci, I don't know where to start. What can I do? It's because it's a process. It's a process and it takes a little bit of time and it takes a little bit of effort. So let's start with curiosity. Be curious. Inquire about the things that you don't know. And even better, don't assume that you do know. Each underrepresented group is not monolithic. If you know Marci French, who's a biracial woman, it doesn't mean you know all biracial women. We all have different experiences in our own path. Admit that you don't know what you don't know. Acknowledge the limits of your knowledge. It's not encompassing the whole picture to know one person, like I was mentioning, but we often go to those people to ask questions and desire information, right? But we live in a place of the internet. We live in a society that everything is at our fingertips. We can get to the information so quick, so easy. Utilize it. And I recognize we have a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of stuff that's skewed. But if you're intentional and you really want to know about how allyship should look like for you, there are books, there are podcasts, there are TED Talks and YouTube channels. There is so much information out there on what it is to be a strong ally. You can take the time to find it. My personal favorite way to educate myself is to go to the source. And again, I want to say it again, being an underrepresented group is not monolithic, but I try to spend my time in the areas where I'm trying to educate myself, expose myself to the people who live in those communities and understand their path and their journey and listen and learn and view, because the source, that's the best place to get the information. Your education is up to you. We're all adults here and we know how to get the education. You have to decide, how important is this to me? How much do I really want to dig in and find the information? Because I can promise you it's not going to just land on your lap. Also, your friends are tired. Your friend that has been dealing with ableism her whole life, and her friends are all coming and asking her questions and asking about how to do this and what is it like to be that. If you're asking, chances are 15 other people are asking, and she's tired, and she'd love for you to take some time to find that information on your own. Not that we don't like to be resources, but there's ways for you to do that as well. All right, now how do you show up? You know the why, you know the process. Now what do you do with that information? How can you show up to be an ally in the workplace and everywhere in your life? Well, ask people. Listen about their journey. Listen to their journey. Sometimes listening is really uncomfortable, by the way. Sometimes we have to fight the urge to make it about us. Yesterday, I was listening to one of my girlfriends, and she was telling me about how her daughter had been discriminated against at a car dealership. And I was listening to her story. And the whole time she was telling me the story, I was thinking about this time that it happened to me. And I had gone to this car dealership and they thought I had bad credit just by the way I looked. And they made me feel like this big. And as soon as she was done with her story, I jumped in and I was like, oh, let me tell you this time that it happened to me. You know what, y'all? This is not the Impression Olympics. We are not all fighting to see who can be the most depressed, who's been through the most horrible thing. Empathy is about listening and understanding. So take time to listen to hear. Listen to the person say, I want to share my journey with you. I want to share what it means and how my community is impacted by ABC. Okay. Also, have the courage to speak up. When you hear things that are off color, inappropriate, hold up. That's not okay. It's okay to stop people in their tracks and draw attention to the fact that what they're saying is not okay. And by the way, we're talking about allyship in the workplace. Sometimes not saying anything has legal ramifications. And it's really important that we stop those things in their tracks and make sure people understand that what they're saying can get your organization sued and can get people sued personally, by the way, for those of us who know all about fair housing. So it's important that we stop them and talk to them about why it isn't okay. Sponsorship and mentorship. Now, if you know me in any capacity, you know that mentorship and sponsorship is everything to me. It is so important, and I speak about it in everything, in every place I go. And it's because mentorship and sponsorship is why I'm here today. Why I'm standing right in front of you is because someone mentored me. Somebody took time out of their busy career and said, Marci, let me teach you something new. Let me show you how to further your career path. Let me tell you about the designations in our industry that are important and that can help you go even further. They spent time with me. Sometimes they spent time with me after hours. Sometimes they let me cry on their shoulder and just vent about all the things that were frustrating me in my career and even in my life. Sponsorship is a little different than mentorship. This is when I've had people in rooms that said, this is a great conversation. You know who would really add value to this conversation? Do you know Marci French? This is sponsorship. When you're in a room where people don't have access and you give them access, you talk to others about their talent and create a path for them to the table. Are we doing that? Are we looking around our organization and seeing people that are underrepresented? And I know this is a sensitive topic because we say, whoever's best fit for the job should get the job. That's great. But sometimes somebody who doesn't get the representation and the sponsorship and the mentorship might be one of your best performers, your very best performers. But they haven't given an opportunity to get to the table yet to show you what they have. So don't just talk about allyship, be about allyship. This by now is probably a quote you've heard 52 times, but it never gets old because it is the perfect analogy to all things diversity and inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And while we know that Verna Myers is the person who came up with this quote in this industry in NAA, we give it to the most amazing Josie Eatman. Many of us have been in committee meetings where she has shared this quote with us, and all of us quote her in bringing this to the forefront of our minds. Because at the end of the day, it means one thing to come to the party, but it means a whole nother to actually get up and get to dance. So ask yourself, are you inviting people to the party? And once they get there, are you actually asking them to dance? So as I come to the end of my session with you today and to the end of my presentation, I'd like to take a few moments to acknowledge some of the allies in my own life and what they've meant to me and my career and just the growth that I've had. These are people that have spent time with me and invested into me from really early stages. I have teachers like Mr. Cole. I have people in my childhood like Leona who saw that I had some talent in some areas, but I didn't have the resources to further those talents. And they spent time helping me, encouraging me. I have people that are my friends that I just know outside of this industry. Can you believe that I actually have friends outside of the multifamily industry Treva and Tracy. They are people that have known me since I was really young, and they're always there to encourage and say, yes, we stand with you in solidarity for the work that you're doing. And we know it's not always easy, but we're here and we're helping pass the message along. To know that I have friends that are in different groups than me, that are passing the message, that are sponsoring others, is something that means so much to me. And then I have my colleagues who are also my friends, who have spent a lot of time sponsoring and mentoring me. Patricia and Naomi have both given me opportunities in a job that others may not have given me. They saw something in me right out the gate and said, you know what? I'm going to give you a job that you're not even ready for, that you don't think you're ready for, but I know you're ready for. And they gave me an opportunity to flourish there. Greg and Maureen have sponsored me. They've been in rooms that I didn't have access to. And then I'll find out later when I've been invited to the party and then somebody asks me to dance that I got invited because Greg and Maureen said, you know, that Marci's a pretty good dancer. You should invite her to this party. That means everything to me. And as I opened up my family, you know, my dad, for those of you know, who is not my biological father, but he was the first ally and said, I'm going to create a path for you. I don't have much, but I'm going to give you what I have. And my brother, who knows I'm exhausted, he will say, you know, I'm going to say the thing that I know you're biting your tongue to say. Those people have given me the ability to be who I am today. And I ask that for those of you who have opportunities to sponsor and mentor and create space and be an ally for others, that you look for those opportunities. It's not just the right thing to do, but it's going to further your organization. It's going to build your organization. And by the way, you're going to feel pretty good about it when you go to sleep at night. All right. So saying all the things that I just said, James, do we have some questions from the audience that we'd like to talk about today?
Well, Marci, that was really terrific. No questions yet, but you've given everyone a lot to chew on. It might take a moment or two for questions to arise. So again, please type your questions into the Q&A box or the chat boxes at the bottom of your screen, please.
Y'all get in while you can. What happens is everyone's always afraid. Then 5 minutes go by and then everybody wants to ask questions. We do have a little bit of time today, but this is safe.
Well,
this is a safe space.
Well, the good news, we've got our first question, and you are asked, is it fine to have several mentors from only, I guess, from one area of knowledge? In other words, more than one mentor in a particular area of knowledge, I suppose.
So I highly recommend that you have mentors from all different backgrounds, from different areas of your life. I have mentors that look like me. I have mentors that don't look like me. I have mentors that are in my industry, that are outside of my industry. In the end, have somebody to help balance you out because, you know, we think we know and we're just moving along and we're thinking we're making good decisions for ourselves. But if you have a mentor that you trust, they'll help you get right back on the path. Or they help you pick, you know, let you choose, think of, questions or ideas that help you decide which path you should be on. Because I think a good mentor doesn't tell you what to do. They help you discover what's best for you on your own.
Well, we've got two questions that are kind of related to each other. One person asked, what is one book you'd recommend for people who want to become an ally? And a second person had a similar question, but added podcasts to this mix. So are there any books or podcasts that you would recommend to the group?
Well, so the podcast, so there's a TED Talk, Alicia Anderson. I know that wasn't what the question was, but I do throw that one out there. TED, she's in our industry. She works for one of our suppliers, and she talks about ableism and diversity and inclusion. So Alicia Anderson just recently did a TED Talk, and we should be supporting her, by the way, because she's coming out of our industry. I'm going to go out and say a podcast that I've participated in. Wasn't expecting to do this. Hopefully she's okay with it, but Beyond Picket Fences is an amazing series. There's a lot of things related to diversity and inclusion speckled throughout. It is a women's podcast, but there is a lot about diversity and inclusion in there. And I'm going to be a little controversial and pick one of my favorite books to recommend regarding white privilege. Robin, I just blanked her name. I wasn't prepared. Maybe it's D'Angelo. If anybody knows, because I know several of us have talked about this, somebody put it in the chat. It's been a great book because a lot of folks that come from Caucasian backgrounds, European backgrounds have asked me about, that's where I get the question the most about allyship. And I feel like that is a great book that kind of talks about it. There's also a gentleman on YouTube, Difficult Questions. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting everything today, and I have this all written out and I forgot it. Hold on just a sec. YouTube. Can you go to the next question, James? I'm going to pull up this information while we are talking.
Sure, you bet. Well, actually, there's also two questions that kind of overlap. One person asked, how do you find an ally? And then scrolling down, another person asked, how do we recognize allies or do a temperature check to see if a person could be an ally?
Oh, that's good. Difficult questions, difficult conversations with a Black man. Sorry, was my one on YouTube. How do I find an ally? Listen, that's a hard one, and especially in the workplace. But if you are watching and listening to the language people utilize, you can usually pick up when somebody is interested in allyship. They're talking about what they did this weekend. They're talking about books they've read. And again, I realize we're really careful, especially right now. We've had some contentious conversations in the workplace and amongst our friends and family, but I often can hear the language people use when they're allies that let me know that they're safe for me. And I would seek it out, especially at work. In leadership, ask, listen, I'm from an underrepresented group. I want to further my career. I want to know that there is space for me here. Is there anyone that can mentor me and help me learn the things that I don't know? Hopefully, if you're in the right organization, they're going to either step in or they're going to point you in the right direction to the right person. If you do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group in your organization, and a lot of the affiliates are actually doing that work now, we're doing it nationally, plug yourself in there. The allies are there. They're there and they're waving their hands and they're excited and they want to do the work. And that is probably the absolute easiest place to find them.
Well, what we'll do is we've got a lot of questions in the chat box, but we also have 3 questions in the Q&A box. So let me take one more from the chat and then we'll bounce over to Q&A and then maybe come back. From the chat box, what sources or surveys can you use to make the business case for creating an ERG which encourages allyship and mentorship?
Ooh, what you got me there.
That's a good one. Well,
the business case. You know what? That's a good one. Can you do me a favor, James? Because
Sure.
I do have information on the business case and not with me. Can you get that person's name? Because I'm going to follow up with them.
Terrific. Well, Liz Newkirk, if you could do us a favor and just put your information in the chat, and we'll try to download the chat and get that over to Marci. So
but
flipping
in
over
the
to
end, I do want to say this. There is a business case from just the fact that I said we are having a hard time attracting talent. Everybody is. I literally have not talked to a single person in this industry who doesn't have open positions. And at the end of the day, people are looking. The first thing I used to do when I'm in a job now where I'll be here forever, but when I used to be on the market for a new position or a company would approach me, the first thing I would do was go to their website and look at the leadership, because everybody always posts the pictures of all their leadership. And I would go look and see, is there somebody that looks like me there? If that isn't the most simplified business case that I can give you, if you want to be on the forefront and the place where people would like to work, show them by your leadership that they're welcome there. That right there is the business case, because you're missing out on some great talent if you're not talking about if you're not having these conversations in your organization.
Excellent. Well, going over the Q&A, a series of questions. First is, how can leadership invite diverse voices to dance if it isn't specifically in the form of promoting someone to the leadership team?
That's a good one. So don't think just about promotion. Sometimes it's about access. We talk about DE&I, right? We talk about equity. It's access. So maybe in your organization, there isn't an open leadership position, but someday there will be. So maybe you can take time to invest in that person for a future leadership role. And that was one of the things that my mentors did for me and my allies did for me. I would have the opportunity to take the designations in our industry, the CAM, the CAPS, we have the CALP, we have the CAS. There's Leadership Lyceum. There's the Diversity Leadership Program that will probably open up here soon for next year. All of those programs are things that create future leaders. So maybe today's not a promotion, but maybe today's learning. So when the promotion comes available, I'm ready. Look at our service teams. I have a service supervisor right now who kind of mentioned in passing that he might like to be a manager someday. Now, diversity and inclusion, diversity isn't just about people of color. This particular person is a Caucasian male, but he wants to swap over to a place where we don't see that a lot. The managers oftentimes are women. And he's saying to me, I don't want to be a service supervisor. I'd like to come into the office. I think I have potential to be a great leader. So somebody giving him the opportunity, the skills and the learning that he's promotable later is also something you can do. It doesn't always have to be right now. Remember, it's a process.
Another question. Do we need to ask permission to ally? Should we be asking those who want to ally for if they want us to ally for them?
That's a really great question, whoever asked that. And it's hard because not everybody feels the same. So you have to be okay that the answer that you get is the answer that you get. Somebody came to me and said, Marci, I would like you to participate in ABC. And I'm just going to be honest with you. We're trying to diversify ABC, and we see you as somebody who's qualified. So we would like you to join the group because you represent a diverse background. I absolutely love that. When people say that to me, if I have the time and the bandwidth, I always want to add my diverse voice if somebody thinks it's useful. But I happen to know there are other people that are offended by that, right? So then you think, how can I win? There are people who say, don't ask me just because I'm the X in the room to participate because you need to fill and check a box. That's offensive for them. So how do you win, right? That seems like an impossible, you're trying to show up as an ally, you're trying to take action. For me, I think it's okay to ask. And I would say, ask anyway. If they say no, thank you, be respectful of the no, thank you. Whatever reason they have is theirs, and you have to be okay with that. But I say you don't know until you do ask. You can't know if they're going to come to your party unless you invite them. You don't know if they're going to dance unless you invite them. And I will say too, go a step further. Do they come to the party? Do they dance? Let them pick some music. Let them teach others how to dance because it's how we keep the path going.
Well, you kind of touched on this next question, so it's a challenging one. I am the sole Black executive at my small company, and my white executive counterparts constantly expect me to be the Black Messiah. However, they rarely accept my feedback. How do I navigate this uncomfortable relationship and still show up for my community?
Oh, wow. Because I've been in that seat a lot of times. Can I just say, I encourage you to be transparent and authentic. I encourage you to invite those other executives to a meeting where you speak to them about how you feel. And I would say that if you're in the right place, they're going to hear you. They're going to hear you and they're going to talk to you about why it is. And that's the point, right? Why are they not taking your ideas? Maybe it's cost prohibitive. Maybe timing is a problem. Maybe they don't have the other resources. You said you come from a small company. Maybe they don't have the resources to execute your idea. But I think you should ask them, why are my ideas? You ask for my opinion. I'm giving you my ideas and I don't see they're executed here. Is there a reason for that? So we don't know unless we ask. And depending on the answer, you're going to know if there's further evolution for you at that company. And I get it. We're all trying to pay bills. We need a job. I understand. But if it's important to you, you'll ask.
Well, you might have answered the fourth question, which kind of segues again. How do you get past those individuals in higher leadership who don't necessarily see this as a priority?
So again, I'm going to get the business case. Again, I have it. There is a business case. And I think, as I was saying earlier, are you doing this because it's the right thing to do? And if that's not enough, let's talk about the business case. Let's talk about the folks that work for our industry. Listen, our industry is diverse naturally. It's naturally diverse. And I try to point that out. I've spoken to some leaders of some large management companies here at NAA in the multifamily industry. And they can see, they look around on our on-site teams and they see so much diversity and think of themselves as a diverse company. But as you go up the ranks and see that as the leadership increases, it's not always there. And if they're performing well, they may not think it matters, to your point, right? So I think that over time, again, as we're trying to attract talent and keep retain that talent, we have to show them there's a path for them. Listen, I wanted to always find the next best thing. My mentor used to laugh because I'd get to whatever the next job was, and 6 months later, I was looking for the next thing. If you don't keep feeding these team members that are hungry to learn and to grow and to promote, they'll find it somewhere else.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to bump back to the chat area. We've got a good involved question. First, kudos. Person says, I appreciate your emotional labor in educating us on this topic! Exclamation point. Are there any frequent areas where people try to be an ally and end up really putting their foot in their mouth or miss the mark? AKA, they mean well, but aren't understanding how their word choice or word view makes others feel.
By the way, I've been guilty of this all the time. My mouth moves much faster than my brain. So I've stuck my foot directly in my mouth several times. So again, when we know better, we do better. And sometimes we don't know, so we don't make the right move or say the right thing. So I just encourage people, can we have some grace? Can we please remember that most people really are doing the best they can, right? They're not trying to offend you. They're not trying to hurt your feelings. But at some point, they're trying to move along and do the right thing. So leave grace. That's the first thing I would say. And the other thing I would say is to not be afraid to apologize. Again, somebody who sticks their foot right in their mouth, I have to go back and say, you know what? Did that hurt your feelings? Did I say something out of pocket? And you'll often get somebody who says, oh, no, it's okay, it's okay. But I will still always leave space to say, you know what? I feel uncomfortable with what I said, and I'm really sorry. Please know that I want to do better. Maybe you ask them, what could I have said? How could have I asked that question? What terminology? And that happened recently where I had to ask somebody, what terminology do you prefer? For example, I like to just be called Black or biracial. Some people want to be called African American. I'm not offended if you call me Black. I'm not offended if you call me African American, but somebody else might be. And you don't know until you know. So when you know better, just do better.
Another question, how can we convey to employees that they are in a safe place and encourage them to share their feelings?
Well, tell them. I always say that. My organization knows when I do trainings, when we have some tough conversations, I always start with, this is a safe space, and prove it. Prove it. How are you responding to the things they say? Whoever earlier was asking about their ideas not being executed. Are you executing some ideas? Are you hearing somebody that tells you, I don't feel like my voice is heard, and doing something about it? Or somebody who tells you something was offensive and fixing it? I think, that's where I would go with that.
Another question, what's the most common thing you see that people do thinking they're helping, trying to be understanding, diverse, et cetera, that's actually more harmful than helpful?
Okay, so I have a girlfriend who gets very angry very angry when things are happening out in the world and the social injustice that she sees, and she's a white woman. No one is more angry than her. So she will be in a circle and maybe somebody will say something. She's just angry and she's mad. And her and I have these conversations quite frequently where I say, sometimes they just don't know. She's like, how can you be so calm? And I said, because you being mad at them doesn't do anything but make them more defensive. They want to dig in their heels and prove their point, right? So I say that sometimes anger and lashing out isn't always the answer. Sometimes you got to just take a breath and let people say what they're going to say. Sometimes they're digging their own hole along the way. But, sometimes people just need an ear, and then you quietly, carefully, gracefully teach them why what they're saying just isn't okay.
Another question. With your experience in the industry, what would be your best pitch to a superior to really encourage engagement?
Look around. Look around. The future of the multifamily industry looks very different than it did 20, 30 years ago. It really looks different. And it's going to continue to look different. As we go through the years, diversity is all the groups together that are underrepresented together are going to be the majority of the people in our rental units, in our teams. And if you want to be on the forefront, if you want to be on the cutting edge, you're getting in now. You're not waiting.
Well, I think this is great. I think we've handled all the questions that are currently on. If people want to, look in the chat. A lot of folks had some great reading resources that they recommended. So they helped you out there, Marci. So that's good.
Yes, thank you. And I see Dana. I'm going to jump right in. Dana, I adore you, by the way. She recommends the ERG Leadership Alliance. They host virtual sessions and case studies, as well as tools to create and support ERGs. Thank you, Dana, for bailing me out. I owe you.
Well, again, the great questions from the audience, great participation, clearly a great speech, Marci, to incentivize all this interaction. And thank you very much, of course, for your passion in putting forth your personal experience and all the good advice that you were able to offer. Next slide, please.
It's going. Let's see. Hold on. There we go.
So for those who want to interact directly with Marci and follow up, if you go to the previous slide there.
Okay.
Those are all the different ways you can connect with Marci. Very generous person, always happy to lend assistance and allyship wherever possible. So LinkedIn, as well as I can't see it.
It's Mondays with Marci. So I find that after I do a session, a lot of people will reach out to be friends with me on Facebook, and I typically try to keep that for my personal life. So if you'd like to follow me on Facebook, I'm gonna get better. I have a page called Mondays with Marci where I do little snippets of D&I trainings.
Excellent. So next slide, please. So for those asking what's next in our NAA D&I Awareness Week, well, tomorrow there will be another informative webinar entitled DE&I as a Forethought, Practical Insights and Strategies for Leaders. Our presenter will be Nadine Augusta, Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer for Cushman & Wakefield. It will be held back at our regular time of 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock Eastern. And of course, we cordially invite everyone on board to join us once more. We also welcome everyone to visit our webpage, which is /DI Week. And there you'll find a series of challenges and actions where you can share your own D&I experiences in the workplace. Next slide, please. So I wish to thank everyone for participating. This has been tremendous. Thank you to Marci, and thank you to our highly engaged audience. We value your membership and appreciate your attendance. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Don't forget to come back tomorrow, because I think it's a big deal to have an executive that is from an underrepresented group. And Nadine Augusta is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Cushman & Wakefield. And I can tell you, I'm not missing it. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow.